Hello everyone, welcome to another Watchful Software webinar. This time on how classification changes the way you look into corporate data. Before we start, I have to apologize for any noise you might hear because there is some construction work right outside Watchful Software's building, so I'm sorry for that. So let's see our agenda. First, we will start with some introductions and house rules. Then we will move on to business context and challenges. After, policy-driven classification and talk about the enterprise security puzzle. Next, we can see how RightsWATCH can help and have a small product demo. We will finalize with key takeaways and a Q&A session with a wrap-up. So, my name is Katia Franco, and I serve as Product Marketing Manager at Watchful Software. Let's just check some house rules. You are all muted centrally, and you don't need to mute or unmute yourself. This webinar is being recorded, and you'll have access to it on demand at the resources page of our website. So anytime you are welcome to enter any questions, and they will all be answered at the end. So starting with the business context and challenges. Well, we all know that digital information may include confidential messages, email messages, strategic documents, financial forecasts, contracts, whatever. So this is really the most valuable assets in any organizations outside of their people, of course. However, intricate and unclear data classification strategies that aren't understood by users normally end up never being used in the real world. And plus, the classification requirements many times don't take in consideration the business impact and the volume of legacy data present in the organization. Also, we have the widespread use of laptops and mobile devices that add difficulties in controlling what happens to the data. And an ever-growing list of legislative and regulatory requirements also add to the ongoing task of protecting digital files and information. So, organizations like yours need to control and protect their sensitive and confidential information against leakage by dynamically applying an information control policies to all types of unstructured data like emails, documents, spreadsheets at the point of creation of that information. So this is key. And to do so, data classification should be established by setting a set of principles that are related to the proper use of that information, handling of that information, and applicability of different protection files for each data category. So, to successfully implement a policy-driven classification process, your organization must know its data very well. And for that, it must answer a few questions. To know what data is truly sensitive and what is not. To differentiate levels of classification. So there are levels of information that can be public and information that is confidential and must be protected. Who should have access to that information? How is the data to be handled? When the classification should change and if it should change or not during its life cycle. And where should the data be protected? So, in this context, we have what we call the enterprise security puzzle that relates to every major security topic and needs of any company. So first of all, there's the need of having the data classified and labeled according to corporate security policies. And this means that data has to be put into its appropriate category depending on its criteria. And this could be based on the content of files, on their context, and of course their metadata. Once the data is classified, it falls into a certain classification, it should be labeled accordingly with headers, footers, watermarks, legal jargon, etc. All of this to protect your organization, of course. And this data should also have its metadata tagged, and this will allow tracking and forensics. The next piece of the puzzle is legacy data. And this is because not only current files need to be classified and labeled, but also existing legacy files need to be classified according to the company's defined information security policy. Data loss prevention is another key issue nowadays, and organizations must be able to apply data-centric policies to files and emails to educate users and prevent them from going against corporate policies, and have data classification tools that have the ability to work together with other DLP systems that might already exist in the corporate network. The next piece of the puzzle is rights management, and enforcing role-based access control policies over files anywhere allows a corporation to escape that limitation of a one-type-fits-all policy rules. So leveraging this means that the appropriate policy rules can be applied to the data, depending on the organizational unit, the project, or the department to which the user belongs. Another key issue is related to mobile devices. So keeping information safe in a bring your own device world is a must today. So there's a need to extend information protection and control policies to smartphones and tablets, such as iPhones, iPads, Android and BlackBerry platforms, etc. And finally, we of course have data analytics and the ability to provide comprehensive audit trail for forensic analysis, and also be able to get a clear demonstration of compliance together with a security information and event management tool gives you the ability to be able to correlate events and generate dashboards, alarms, reports, and the most important of all, knowing in real time who is doing what, when, and how with classified information. So how can RightsWATCH help? Well, first, by classifying data automatically right at the point of origin. So this helps you to have the risk mitigated and able to implement the proper treatment of that information throughout the data lifecycle. So the second, leveraging content and content scanning automation. RightsWATCH policies allow for the automatic update of the classification of files after a certain date in the future. Well, this is particularly interesting in situations in which classification levels are related to projects that have an expiration date, for example. We can see ahead how this works. And finally, while increasing user and organizational awareness for the value of sensitive data, RightsWatch can reduce corporate liability in the event of a breach or exposure by delivering a comprehensive audit trail for real-time data analysis and data intelligence. And this makes sure that you are compliant with a variety of governance, risk, and compliance requirements like HIPAA, ISO 27001, 27001, PCI compliance, etc., etc. So let's see how all of this works. So we have here the Outlook interface with the new email. You can see that the user has a few options here. And he can really choose how to apply this classification to this email. And the options are separated into scope and into level. Scopes can be internal departments or teams allocated to projects. In this case, we have the ability to define an external scope and a generic scope. And we also have levels of classification. And in this case, it can go from public to secret. And all of them can support encryption. It depends on the configuration that you set. So the system is able to automatically classify the information based on content, as the example here, context or metadata. Here in this example, we have content-based classification. Why? Because in this email content, we have WSW secret information, and also in the subject, secret info. So RightsWatch detects this, and it applies automatically the classification as secret on the generic scope. However, if your company chooses to do so, you can allow your users to change this classification or define it by themselves. So as well as in Outlook, you can have the same interface presented to users. We have here in this example of a user saving a PDF document. So there is a consistency on RightsWatch interface across all platforms, Outlook, Office, PDFs, etc., as shown here, as you can see. If you notice below, you can see that RightsWatch also educates the user on the information control policies in place, presenting warnings and disclaimers. In this case, it's saying the user that you change the automatic classification rule. So, and it's asking him to acknowledge this. Say, yes, I want to change the classification, or no, I want to revert this classification to the original classification. So let's imagine that this document was automatically classified by RightsWatch as secret, and the user wants to decrease the level of classification to confidential. So the system allows it, but he asks them to acknowledge this. So it is logged in the RightsWatch database for forensics and tracking. And as you can see, if it doesn't click one of these options, the save button is grayed out, so he's not able to proceed. So he really has to click in one of these options. Additionally, RightsWatch allows for automatic automatic file reclassification that we call ITA, Intelligent Time Access. That allows for automatic upgrade or downgrade of the classification of a Microsoft Office file after a specified date in the future that can be defined by the user. So the user, at the point of creation of the document, is going to define from how many days after the classification will change. And this can be an upgrade of the classification or a downgrade of the classification. So RightsWATCH also adds visual labels to enforce corporate policies, educate users with visual clues and prompts, as we've seen, to protect the company from a legal and compliance perspective. So it also adds watermarks, headers, footers dynamically. So moving on to legacy data. So how does RightsWATCH address this issue? So we all know that all those unclassified pre-existing data in users' desktops, shared network drives, or cloud-based drives also need to be classified, also can be a liability to a company. So RightsWATCH can do this in two ways. So we have RightsWATCH Global Protector client, where the right user can right-click the file or folder and select the appropriate classification. Of course, we can define that corporate policy rules can override user decisions and choices. This is also configurable. And there's a second option that's called Global Protector Server, where there's an automatic classification of files that is triggered by the system administrator or the IT manager. So where corporately defined policy rules are applied on every file type the Global Protector finds in the process of scanning corporate repositories. There's also a third way that we call the Global Protector Web. The Global Protector Web enables the automatic classification of files based on content and metadata. So this is a software component that is installed in an Internet Information Services web server and that operates independently of any agent or plugin running on the endpoint. So Microsoft Office files can be classified when they are being exported or downloaded from the web server. So this process is completely transparent to the user. Moving on to data loss prevention. RightsWATCH can really be used as a more cost-effective alternative to traditional DLP systems and is able to trigger whether warning rules, where an alert is shown to the user for educational and training purposes. And in this case, the user will be able to save the file or send the email in case of emails anyway. This is just an alert and a warning rule. And you also have blocking rules where an alert is shown to the user and independently of the classification level chosen, the file won't be able to be saved, or in the case of email, it won't be able to be sent. So in this case, this user is trying to save a confidential Excel spreadsheet in a temporary folder. So there's a rule configured in RightsWATCH that prevents the user to save confidential files into temporary folders. So RightsWATCH is warning the user and saying that you're trying to save to a web drive. This section has been blocked as a part of a security policy. So the Save button is grayed out and the user is unable to save the file into the temporary folder. So there's another way of having RightsWatch working not as a DLP, but together with the DLP, because RightsWatch adds the RMS unique identifier to the metadata of emails, Microsoft Office files, and PDFs to leverage this type of technology. So with RightsWatch and the DLP system that you might already have in your company, you are able to have mechanisms to discover information, monitor its flow, and protect it to prevent leakage. And of course, to ensure compliance with information security and access policies. So by classifying and labeling unstructured data at the point of creation, RightsWatch vets the unstructured data with the enterprise document management policies. And then the DLP can implement precise and deeply content-aware decisions about documents, emails, etc. Regarding rights management, here we have an example of RightsWatch enforcing role-based access control policies. So in this case, when a user tries to send information that is classified as internal to an external user, so a Gmail account, here we have phil@gmail.com. So RightsWatch detects immediately that some recipients might not be able to open the email and access the information in attach because they do not have permissions to do so. So in this case, RightsWatch presents the user three options. Option 1, remove the recipient from the recipients list and then send the email. Option 2, downgrade the classification level of the email so that all recipients are able to open and read the email. And option 3, ignore the warning and send the email anyway. However, the user with the Gmail account will not be able to open it. Only the users with rights to do so will be able to see, open the email and the attachments in the email. Next, on mobile devices. Well, MDM solutions, mobile device management solutions, are able, as the name says, manage the device itself. And this allows IT to leverage existing enterprises resources like email, content repositories, security certificates, and identity management, and enables the use of both corporate-owned and employees' device in the enterprise network. So RightsWatch adds to this by managing the data itself on the device, by classifying it, enforcing role-based access control policies, and being able to perform remote kill access on demand. Finally, regarding data analytics, RightsWatch has a monitoring interface that allows for logging, audit trails, forensics, and damage control actions. It has a content-rich database, an all-in-one centralized management, and a scalable architecture. On top of this, RightsWatch also supports and integrates with CM tools. So RightsWatch server stores the logs in a SQL database, and then it feds the CM tool for knowledge generation. So, for example, enterprises running RightsWATCH together with Splunk, which is a CM tool, a leader in the market, actually, they will be able to leverage Splunk to correlate events and generate dashboards, alarms, and reports. So you can know that in real time who is doing what, when, and how with sensitive information. So we have further support planned for the CM tools. And how does this work? Well, RightsWatch delivers a manual on how to integrate both tools and a configuration file that allows for the IT manager to have predefined metrics and analytics being shown in the CM interface. We're heading towards the end of this webinar, so I want to finalize with some key takeaways for you working in the IT area and in the security departments of organizations. First key takeaway is it's related to being able to design a simple information security model that is easy to understand, implement, and apply. It is important that it has levels of classification for sensitive information that can be applicable to both structured and unstructured data. For example, from public to secret, public, internal, confidential, secret, top secret even. The second is support data classification initiatives with the necessary policies, processes, and tools to achieve your project's objectives. The third key takeaway is making sure that your data classification process and tools take in consideration your data's life cycle and that they are able to accommodate possible classification changes during the data's life cycle. And fourth, that it addresses your business needs like legislative and regulatory compliance with clearly defined project scopes. So wrapping up, let me remind you that this webinar will be available at the resources area at our website, and that you can send any questions or even demo requests for info@watchfulsoftware.com. And thank you so much for watching this webinar, and have a nice day.